Yes, well, it's going to one, two, three.
Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Jarrett. I work with the Kings River Conservation District with the Kings River Water Quality Coalition, working in the Irrigated Lands Program. I'll be presenting today also from the coalition. There are a couple other staff members here today that will be in the background, kind of helping to answer questions. That's Deborah Dunn. She is a coordinator for the Water Coalition. Jose Soto, he's a resource analyst, and he leads a lot of the surface water and groundwater sampling activities. Additionally, we just had Seth Wood come on board as a resource technician. He'll be helping out with some of the coalition member activities and management zone activities as well. So again, welcome everyone. Uh, it's a lot to cover today, so I'm gonna go ahead and get into that here. Okay, so I don't want to be dramatic, but to frame this year in a context different than others, we'll label it as a triple threat. Uh, there are three major submissions converging on one deadline. So normally you're going to be used to submitting the irrigation and nitrogen management plan summary. if you've been in the coalition for longer than 5 years, you might remember the farm evaluation and MPIR. The farm evaluation used to be due every year, used to be an annual submission. That was moved to a 5-year update along with the groundwater MPIR. So please try to leave yourself plenty of room to submit these reports by March 1st. While the MPIR isn't technically challenging, it does have some breadth to it. So please just, yeah, again, account for that time when you're looking at that March 1st submission deadline. I just want to step back really quick and kind of reframe the irrigated lands program. So the irrigated lands program is designed to protect surface water and groundwater from discharges. The Central Valley Water Board is the regulator setting the waste discharge requirements and program goals. The Water Quality Coalition serves as an intermediary, helping members comply, conducting monitoring, and aggregating data. And the grower is the implementer, putting practices in place on farm and reporting nitrogen use, yield, and operational data. The role of a coalition is to help our growers essentially stay out of trouble and participate effectively in the program. So we're always trying to do our best to keep you out of trouble. So any help that you can provide us to help us help you is always appreciated. A key program that you'll hear referenced today and going forward is a management practices evaluation program. The goal is to identify and promote management practices proven to be protective of groundwater quality. The process relies on the data you submit to support agronomic analyses, track practice adoption, and inform regional water quality modeling. The output is practical program guidance, especially tools like the groundwater protection targets that help steer the overall effort here in the Central Valley and demonstrates to the water board that we are continuing to make progress there. So after you submit your data, there are some things that happen to it. So the coalition aggregates and analyzes it against other farms. And that combined data set supports regional water quality modeling. That modeling and analyses produces scientific and agronomic insights that come back around to inform better on-farm practices. So I think the key here is that it's a cycle where your reporting helps improve tools and the tools help improve outcomes on the farm. So I encourage all of you to not just look at this as a regulatory checkbox, but to make the most of it and try to remove costs, improve efficiencies for your operation. At the core of the reporting framework is the applied versus removed. Applied includes dry or liquid, fertilizers, nitrogen and irrigation water, organic amendments. Removed is the nitrogen removed with harvested crop yield. From there, we use A-R as the nitrogen balance, and this is an indicator of potential leaching. So that this applied minus removed is the estimate as to what is left over that your crop hasn't taken up and is likely to make its way to the water table. Sorry, I almost forgot to mention the applied over removed. This is the efficiency metric. So where the A minus R, you're looking at impacts to the groundwater aquifer. The A over R is your efficiency. So how much are you applying and how much is that crop taking up? So the goal is to meet, the ultimate goal is meeting groundwater protection targets. Your applied minus removed data is used to calculate on a township level a groundwater protection value. This is an estimate of the average nitrate concentration expected, again, to reach groundwater. The value is compared to a target, which represents the leaching rate low enough to protect drinking water standards. The shared objective is for the township's groundwater protection value to meet its target. Your on-farm practices directly influence this outcome. So, yeah, how can we meet these targets? Well, the best tool we currently have is the worksheet. If you're not familiar with this, it is the planning document tracking how much nitrogen you're planning on using, and then at the end of the year, what you actually did use. So, for instance, right now, if you're looking ahead to your 2026 crop, you're going to want to complete this entire form except column B. So that's the actual column B. This is the information that you go back at the end of the year. If your plan changed, if you had to include additional synthetics or whatever, that's where you make that adjustment. It is these actual end numbers that get submitted to the coalition on the summary report. There's a few components that go into the worksheet. One is just parcel management. So you want to make sure these list what is enrolled under your coalition membership. Irrigation management. So nitrogen flows, with the course of water. It makes its way into the water table very easily. This may be an oversimplification, but in some parts of the valley, you can maybe look at the valley floor as Swiss cheese. So, a lot of that nitrogen is leaving the root zone and making it into the water table there. In addition, harvest and yield information. So what did your crop produce? Nitrogen management. So accounting for all sources. And then there's a certification component. So just to make the distinction again between what the worksheet is and what the summary report. The worksheet stays on farm. This is your planning document. No one ever sees the plan, right? What you actually submit is that data at the end of the year, and that gets submitted to the water board. This is the data that gets aggregated and set into models to better inform practices. All right, so one of the newer components, well, at least in the past 5 years, is the inclusion of management units. So this is management unit is a group of parcels or fields up to 640 acres. So that's the maximum acreage you can add into a management unit. A management unit should share the same crop, same nutrient program, irrigation, scheduling, and nitrogen management practices. So you'll see this table, essentially, if all your parcels fit under the categories I just explained there, you can group those under a management unit. Okay, so same crop, same nutrient program, irrigation setup. You can group those. So additionally, you would want to group these out in groups of juvenile and mature crops too. So if you have, mature citrus, group those out differently than juvenile. All right, so after you set your management units, you have your parcels accounted for, and when you're actually submitting this information, you may realize that some of this information is already on your nitrogen report when you go to log in, as far as parcels, management units. Okay. That is from what you submitted last year on your summary report. Okay. So yeah, as you're going through all that, sorry, bear with me for a second. I've lost my slide here. Okay, here we go. Sorry. So right. So with the preseason planning, after you set your management units, you have those all in order. What you want to look at next is the preseason planning. So starting with crop evapotranspiration. So this is box 2 of the worksheet. It's really just 2 words put into one, evaporation and transpiration. So how much water is being evaporated from the soil and how much moisture is that plant transpiring. And once you have that ET value, and maybe I didn't elaborate as to where you can usually find these. That ET value can be found through the Kings River Coalition website. It can be found through CMIS. It can also be found through, I believe, University of California Extension. They offer some resources on this as well. So once you find that number, what you're looking at next is your anticipated irrigation. So this is going to be in addition to that ET. And what you're doing, after you have that ET, you're looking to account for these other elements. So subtracting rainfall, accommodating for any leaching requirements, pushing salts, and then maybe any efficiencies that your irrigation system may be prone to. All right, so once you have those 2 numbers, that essentially tells you what you're going to irrigate for the next year. Along with that, if you've had your irrigation water tested for nitrogen in the past 3 to 5 years, you can use that number. You can also use test strips. So this is something that you can purchase off Amazon or Walmart. And you do want to be careful. These tests do report nitrogen in different ways sometimes. So sometimes as NO3, which includes the oxygen molecules. What I see being reported more regularly, especially from agricultural laboratories, is this NO3. So removing those oxygen molecules and accounting only for the weight of nitrogen. Okay, so once you have all your irrigation scheduling set out for the year, your next step is going to be looking at your yield information. So this is really where the whole plan revolves around. Okay. Your expected yield for the upcoming year, there's a nitrogen removal number for however many pounds of nitrogen you're expecting to get. So you'll want to use that information. So essentially start with your production, how much are you expecting to produce this year or at the end of this year? Let's say, 2,000 pounds. With that, there is nitrogen removal. So essentially you'd want to be using that total nitrogen for your crop that year, and then subtracting for any credits you might have on the field. We'll get into that here in the next slide, but a common production error I see very common is reporting in pounds, maybe when you meant to report in tons. Reporting in bins or cartons, if you do that, just make sure it has a weight, so a carton equal to 25 pounds. Again, your expected yield, you can find this number through CDFA. They have some really great resources for fertilization guidelines. In addition, I have a link at the end of this slide to the Ag MPEP website. So a lot of the tools for this worksheet are housed there and developed, under this management practices program. All right, so if you're looking at that example, the almond end demand, this is kind of what I was alluding to in the previous slide. So for instance, you have a 6-year-old tree, 3,000 pounds per acre yield is what you're expecting. You can calculate the end demand for that crop. So once you have that number, what you're wanting to do is right before you apply that, your first application, do a soil end test, see what's already available there, subtract that. Again, you want to do this right before the application, so you know what that number is exactly. If you wait too long, it's going to change. Your other credit is the irrigation water. So if you're irrigating with your well water, there's certainly some amount of nitrogen already in there. If you don't know that amount, you can use a lab. You can also use these test scripts I mentioned earlier. Those will give you an idea of what's in there. And then along with those credits, you can subtract that from your total demand and then supplement through any foliars or dry and liquid fertilizers. There's a certification component with the worksheet. So the certification component is tied to the plan. So it's not tied to who submits the data on the summary report. It is tied to your plan for the upcoming year. Okay. There are a couple ways to meet this requirement. One, CDFA has a self-certification website. You can go there, you pass the test, you can certify your own worksheets. That does come with an hour of continuing education each year. The other option is to just find a professional, a certified crop advisor. You can go to the CCA website. You can also find that information through the Kings River website as well under INMP resources. I mentioned this earlier, but essentially everything but column B on the worksheet is completed. Preseason, the column B is completed at the end of the year, and this is what actually took place, what you actually applied, and what your actual yield was. This is the data, again, that gets submitted on the summary report. Okay, again, just make sure that you note the differences in column A and column B. A pretty common reporting error I see is reporting the nitrogen applied, organic amendments, yield in for the whole field. So what you're looking to do is just divide that by the acres it was planted on. And again, yeah, please, use your credits. That's free nitrogen. That's already there for you on the field. So I encourage you to make the best of it. So again, the Ag MPEP website, there are tools available to help you fill out this form, right? So if you're not comfortable with math or formulas or equations, or you just want to check your work, the agmpep.com website is it's a great resource. All right, so along with this nitrogen data that you submit each year, it's tied to farming practices and then evaluated for which of those farming practices are most effective at improving nitrogen use efficiency. The Farm Evaluation and Management Practices report are meant to tie in that nitrogen data with those farming practices so that we are able to better identify more efficient practices and then come here each day or each year and let you know what those are. I don't hopefully everyone here received the flyer for the WETA training. So this is a training specifically for this nitrogen management. Okay. It is a pretty comprehensive course. And if you're interested in more information on the worksheet and nitrogen applications and farming practices, I encourage you to go and look for some of those resources. They are available through the Ag MPEP website, and those will be added as the materials are updated and finalized and uploaded to the website. So the farm evaluation is basically just a baseline for your farm, where the management practices gets into a little bit more detail as far as which practices you're using. So, the farm evaluation and groundwater MPIR, again, they're not as technical as the nitrogen reporting. You're really just selecting practices that you use. If you don't use them, you can put not used. It doesn't apply. Used does not apply. You can also always check to learn about practice. This is a great way to just kind of indicate that maybe you don't use a practice, but you're interested in learning more about it. There are a few boxes that say check all that apply. So just make sure that you're selecting all that do apply. If you pick other, please just type in some comments for that other. Well IDs. So a well ID can be anything you want to make up. It's really for your use to be able to pin a specific well on your farm to the report. So whatever can help you reference that well later, as you're maybe looking at the report a year from now. And for consistency across reports, yeah, please use the same well ID. All right, so again, this is a different year compared to previous years. Please account for the additional reports that will be due. So when you first log in to the dashboard, prior to this upcoming March 1st to submit these reports, you'll want to start with the summary report. Then you'll go to the farm evaluation and groundwater MPIR. It has to be submitted in that sequence, and the reporting website will not let you submit a report until that the sequence is adhered to. So again, the MPIR is long. Try to accommodate some room in your schedule there, and please try to get this report into the hands of the correct person. So Uh, that would be whoever has, detailed knowledge of what's going on the field, farming practices, nutrient practices, all that. Again, this information helps better inform what practices to better inform our growers in this area of. And that's really all just, kind of tying back into that groundwater protection process and helping us show progress towards those targets, so that irrigated ag can continue doing its thing. All right. I know that was kind of a short workshop for this year. You were usually used to going over. Um, so we'll go ahead and take questions if anyone has any. Um, if anyone needs any help with these reports, please make an appointment with our office early and to come in. We're happy to sit down with you and kind of go over any of this stuff, okay? Um, let's see what we have as far as questions here. Um, as far as credit, yeah, you should have registered with your email address and your membership ID number. But if you have any question on that, please just add your membership ID number to the chat here. You can also just send us an email with all those membership ID numbers, and we'll go ahead and make sure those get updated. Okay. Um, I'm not seeing any other questions. All right. Oh, sorry. Okay, here's a question from Thomas Chandler. What needs to be certified by professional? Again, um, yes, Thomas. So what needs to be certified is the irrigation and nitrogen plan. So that's your plan going forward as far as what you're going to apply in nitrates and what your expected yield is going to be. There are some exemptions for this certification. One, if your parcel is in a low vulnerability area, this is mostly out on the west side and is going to sit over a layer of cork clay. The other thing that would qualify to have this certified by professional is if you are in one of those low areas, but you've been identified through the nitrogen evaluation process as an outlier, that would also trigger that certification component again. All right, here's a question from Nico. The question is there a way an INMP or summary can account for acreage in transition? So you want to account for whatever has just been planted. You won't necessarily be including a yield that year, but you will report that field is non-bearing and that, essentially it's just been planted in and with what crop. Hope that answers your question there, Nico. Recommend sorry, this is another question. Just asking if there are any recommendations on N test strips. Now, I don't have any offhand. I believe off the top of my head, Watermark is a is one that is used. I've seen used by farm advisors, so that one should be okay. But other than that, I can't remember any off the top of my head. And just look for ones that show a value for the NO3N. I have another question here from Dale. Dale is asking, does ditch canal water need to be tested for N? This is a great question, Dale. Thank you for bringing this up. It does not need to be tested for nitrogen. The coalition does test for that. For the most part, it's always near zero. If it's not near zero, you're maybe picking up someone's discharge. So, Dale, no, you would not need to do your own testing. You can always call our office, but essentially, if you're using surface water, you can use a zero as far as the nitrogen content. Okay, and I think that is all of the questions. So again, if you think of anything later, you have additional questions, feel free to call the office, set up an appointment. Again, we're happy to walk you through these reports and help you get those submitted. But please just try to make enough time so that we can get you in the office. The further away from March 1st, the better. So, okay, well, with that, I will thank everyone for coming this afternoon. I appreciate everyone showing up. If there's any help that the coalition or myself can be, going forward to help you get these reports submitted, or with anything else, even getting you in contact with a farm advisor. A lot of these farm advisors are operating under grant funds, and even outside of that, they can typically look at your operation, help you with a nutrient plan, identify inefficiencies, look at your irrigation system, all that stuff. So please utilize them. They're there for a resource. So thanks again, everyone, and hope to see you next year.